Live.
Ah!
What?
Sorry, was that annoying? Was
Are you
that annoying?
Are you DeMar's daughter right now? Is that what you're going for?
Goodness, bro, I had so much trouble watching that game just because of that. Oh my goodness. If it was my mother sitting beside me, like her mother, I would have got the bloody blue hell slapped out of me for acting like that in public. I don't understand. She's not the reason the Raptors lost, but that was just, come on, come on, take care of your kids out there.
That's game, man. That's fair. It's all fair game. We're not. It's
Yeah,
not golf. We're not playing golf.
well, if Ben Simmons can have the Raptors mascot move because he was
Yeah,
getting annoyed, I'm pretty sure there could have been something done about this.
yeah.
You know what I mean? Don't kick the little kid out. Little kid, but anyway. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, wherever you are, whatever time it is for you right now. Just know that you are locked in onto the point with
Skip.
and the king. You guys, Apple, Amazon, Spotify, listen to us. Find us Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, which is hopefully where you're watching us. And if you are, hook a couple brothers up, click subscribe, click like, leave a comment, hit that bell so you get notified if you enjoy our content. We would definitely appreciate that. And we are here for you, Toronto Raptors fans, because I'm pretty sure you're in mourning right now. Yeah. The Raptors
I don't know
season.
about morning. A lot of people were like, I don't even want the Raptors to win last night. So maybe a lot of people are actually relieved. But anyway, go on.
Well, a lot of Raptors fans out there are mourning and trying to find excuses and trying to figure out why the Raptors lost, which is why we're here. So we are going to discuss this. Now, Skip, the Raptors lost 109 and 105 against the Chicago Bulls in the play-in tournament. So therefore, their season is over currently. And now we have to rebuild and go forward. Now, and maybe look back. But what we saw from that game, I think all of us watching that game that happened prior to this reaction is we noticed that for pretty much the first 3 quarters, we can say, maybe borderline on the third, but we can see that the Raptors were pulling it together, and I think everybody had a lot of hope, and I think everybody had a lot of promise towards the Raptors making it into the play-in to go play against the Miami Heat. But, however, they unfortunately lost. The season is over. But what we did notice, Skip, I wanted to ask you as to when it came down to their loss last night. I think you and I were talking about it yesterday and today, that it came down to the first half being all happy and sunshine, and the second half being gloom and doom. Now, what would you take away from the first half and the second half, my brother?
Well, if you remember, we came on here a couple days ago and did our preview, and I said, look, I predicted the Raptors going to win this game, but at the end of that prediction, I said, the Bulls have a lot of fight in them, and the Raptors have a lot of choke in them. So I don't know if it's going to turn out the way we think. And that's actually kind of exactly how it played out, right? Like the Raptors dominated this game for the first half. I would say the first 2.5 quarters is probably a fair assessment.
Yep.
And then the Bulls just took over for the last quarter and a half. The Raptors could not let go of the rope. They couldn't get it back. The Bulls took over, and obviously the guy you have to tip your hat to is Zach LaVine. Zach LaVine absolutely was the best player in this game in the second half. And I think if you kind of look at the game as a tale of two halves, right? You think about playoff games in general. You always thinking, all right, the team that's going to win the game is the team that has the best player on the floor. And the team that had the best player on the floor in the first half was Toronto. Pascal Siakam was the best player in the game in the first half of this game. Second half, it was Zach LaVine by a landslide. And you can even go down to that second best player, right? Where it's Fred VanVleet in the first half, it's DeMar DeRozan in the second half. So obviously, this game was almost like, it's an oversimplification to say it was 2-on-2 or 1-on-1, but it really did come down to the Raptors' 2 best players, the Bulls' 2 best players, and everyone else was kind of playing a complementary role. So Yeah, I think absolutely. Zach LaVine completely went off in the second half. He was scoring at all three levels. He was just roasting Fred VanVleet. We can get into why that was happening a little bit later in the show. But yeah, I think that's sort of my initial takeaway. We can also talk about obviously 3-point shooting, free throw shooting.
We're going to get into all that.
Yeah, we'll get into that. So I don't know.
You
Yeah,
just mentioned the two best Raptors players. To be quite honest, and you said Pascal was the best. Okay, yeah, he's the go-to guy. We all know he's number one. But to me, just from an eye test, just from watching the game, honestly, what I love was the integrity, the effort, the energy, and which I will give an A+ on, from Scotty Barnes doing all the little things. I think this is a good thing for him as a learning curve. To me, he was my favorite player on the court watching that game. I really do think that. Unfortunately, we did speak on our play-in, and we did talk about aggression and the Raptors attacking the paint and getting to the free throw line. Scotty was not part of that. But Skip, do you think, okay, let's address the elephant in the room, okay? The Raptors only shot 50% from the free throw line.
Mm-hmm.
Was that DeMar's daughter, or was that just them pretty much just choking, right? What did you? I understand you have some thoughts on this. You, like most Raptors fans out there, because I seen all y'all guys online talking about this, right? And that was pretty much a difference maker for the game. Do you think that's something they need to address? That's a high priority, or what do you think that just brought them down? Like they could have won the game.
Yeah, I mean that absolutely brought them down. I kind of want to hit both those points, the Scotty point as well, but I guess I'll start with free throws. So basically, this was their worst free throw performance of the season. They could not hit 2 free throws to save their life. They split almost every time they went to the line. And the Raptors are not a good free throw shooting team, but they're not a terrible free throw shooting team. Like they shot. I looked up the numbers. They shot worse than Shaq's career mark in this game, which is insane. Which is ridiculous. I mean, Reese jumped on the chat and he's like, yeah, the Raptors better not let these free throws catch up to them when they were up like 15, 20 points. And, I kind of shrugged it off. I was like, yeah, it's been a bit of a rough go early on. Like they'll sort it out. Surely they'll make their free throws later in the game. But it just kept happening, no matter who stepped the line, whether it was VanVleet, whether it was Siakam. And yeah, just literally anyone who stepped the line could not hit a free throw to save their lives. And that, I don't want to get too much into psychology here, but that was sort of a bit of a red flag for me. Like this, you think a team that really wants to move forward in the playoffs, that's really focused, you're going to choke a free throw here and there. But to choke that many, to miss that many, that kind of almost says something like they were playing tentative, or maybe they were nervous. There's a funny thing, I always talk about how I shoot 8-ball, right? There's this funny thing sometimes where guys will play really well and then they get down to the 8-ball and no one will make the 8-ball. And it'll be like, no one wants it. No one's going after it. And it's like, it kind of felt that way where the Raptors were doing everything right to get to the line. Then they got to the line and it's like, they don't want it. Like they're not converting these shots, which are just, the easiest shot in the game. Now, I'm not talking, like if you miss 2 or 3, it's not a big deal, but to miss 18 is just, that's abysmal. And I don't even know how to explain that, because that
Skip.
Yeah.
Siakam missing 2 of those 3 free throws at the end of the game, which could have sent the game into overtime. Do you think that was pivotal in the Raptors' loss?
Well, I think they had already kind of given up the ghost at that point. They were honestly kind of lucky that they even got to the line on that shot. I think the initial call of the foul on the floor was probably the right call to make in that spot. And I wasn't expecting to make all 3, to be perfectly frank. But it was just kind of a symptom of the larger problem, right? It was like the free throws at that point had gotten into their head, where it was like, it's not, if you miss a couple free throws and you come back on and the next possession, you make them, like whatever, shrug them off. But at that point in the game, it had been going on for so long that I think they were tightening up. And it's like, oh, well, we missed our last free throws, we better make these ones. And it just got worse and worse and worse. And that was sort of the pattern of the game, right? Just to swoop out and look at the larger picture of the game, there was this kind of like the Raptors were in control. Then kind of near the end of the third quarter, they let go of the rope a little bit. And it's like, okay, like we just have to like recover the rope. We have to like get back together. And it just kept getting worse and worse and worse. It was almost like a train wreck in slow motion. Like you just sort of, you saw it coming and it's like, you're just like waiting for something bad to happen instead of forcing something good to happen, is how it felt like watching that game unravel.
Like the movie Unbreakable, train wreck in slow motion.
Yeah.
Skip, let's hit on some of the other, because we both looked at the box score and we both analyzed a lot of the numbers, and we did watch the game. So we did see the progression of game and how things turned out. Now, we did say in the play-in preview on our last episode that the Raptors would need to control on the rebounds, right? And they did a pretty damn good job. They were up by 12, right, at the end of the game, right? Because we did talk about the size differential between Chicago and Toronto until they started putting out Williams and, what's his name? That other big dude. I'm not even going to talk his name. No, the other dude. Anyway.
They didn't have too many big. I mean, Drummond, but Drummond didn't play in the second half.
Exactly. But I'm not going to say his name because I don't like him. But the Raptors were in control of the rebounds, and which is a potential to possibly control the game. And like you said on our play-in preview, the Raptors need to control the possessions.
Yeah.
Now, what do you think about what do you think about overall with the Raptors when it comes to their rebounding on that game against Chicago?
Well, I'm gonna go into turnovers as well. So turnovers, obviously they lost the turnover battle.
I was going to ask you that next.
Well, it's all part of the same. It's all part of the possession game, right? So they actually lost turnovers in this game. That was a big thing going into the game. I said they have to control the possession battle. They have to control turnovers, and they did lose turnovers, but that was pretty close. Like, Bulls are not a high turnover team anyway. They lost by a couple. That was a big storyline down the stretch. They lost. I think the Raptors had the last 6 turnovers in this game over the last 14 minutes, something like that.
Yeah, that was bad.
So that was not good. But the thing is, like, they did win the possession battle because they won the glass, right? They dominated offensive rebounds. They won 16-8, I believe it was, on offensive rebounds. They won defensive rebounds slightly. So they did get more possessions overall than the Bulls. But then what happens is they only got one more field goal attempt, but they got those 14 extra free throw attempts, right? So it's like, okay, if you're not going to get extra field goals, you're going to get extra free throws. That's even better. But now you have to make those damn shots. So you look at those 14 extra free throws the Raptors took. You hit 10 of those extra free throws, you're sailing in this game. You hit 8 of those free throws, you're in good shape. Like, to miss all those free throws, that was the killer in this game, and it just keeps coming back to the free throw game, because they did win the possession battle. Even though they lost the turnover battle, they won a possession battle, and they could not convert. So yeah, that's really the storyline there.
We didn't see that coming when we spoke about it, because we did talk about the rebounds, which the Raptors won. Mm-hmm. We did talk about the possession battle, which they pretty much won, right? Mm-hmm. We did talk about the transition, which they pretty much won. But like you said, that silent killer was those free throws. Let me go. Ah! Maybe not so silent. Okay. But there's also underlying issues that we noticed that did hurt them, such as the spreading of minutes throughout the players. Now, mm-hmm. You and I have been harping on this for so long, pretty much the whole season, that Nick Nurse and all of our guests, shout out to all the To The Point family, that have talked about where Nick Nurse has been running the starters to the ground, mm-hmm. right? So with the minutes that we saw, like Gary Trent not playing well, right, but still getting minutes. Precious Achiuwa.
He didn't get minutes though. He didn't get minutes. He only got 60 minutes in this game.
Yeah, exactly. But getting minutes, but not playing well. Do you think the minutes and at the timing? Here's my issue: it's the timing of when you put these players on. Like, if you are ahead by a lot, right? Yeah, go in, put in some bench players, right? Rest your starters. But instead, he decided to keep some starters, but the bench players that he chose that were chosen to be in there, I think that did affect the outcome, because that's when we saw the decline in points and Zach LaVine going off for 39 in total that night, right? Just being an absolute killer. What do you think about the management of the minutes over what they did in the second half?
Well, I mean, it's the same story as all season, right? Nick Nurse trusts five guys. He trusts the five guys in the starting lineup, and that's it. Especially with Gary Trent. Obviously, Gary Trent's been struggling the last couple of weeks since he came back from the injury. I guess it's only been a week or so, but so Gary Trent's been struggling, so he didn't have a shot last night. So Nick Nurse pulled the plug on him pretty quick. He obviously didn't trust Boucher. Precious was probably the best player off the bench for them, and that was just a few layups in the lane that he really converted on. Boucher barely did anything. I mean, Will Barton got a touch in the first half. But if you look at that second half, right? The entire second half, Nick Nurse rode his starters into the ground. VanVleet did not rest in the second half. Siakam got 3 minutes of rest. OG, 3 minutes of rest. At the end of the third quarter, these guys sat. Beginning of the fourth, Yak got 3 minutes of rest, and Scotty got 3 minutes of rest. But that was it. Every minute except for 12 in the second half was played by the starters, by my calculation. I might be slightly off, but that's what I added up. And that was sort of the thing where, look, if you're going to play Freddie 24 straight minutes, you can't then ask him to guard the Bulls' best player, right? Like, he was guarding LaVine for the bulk of that game. He was getting blown by. I mean, Freddie is a good point of attack defender. He's good at like getting in, swiping the ball, getting steals, yada, yada, yada. Yeah. But it's to ask him to chase around a guy like that for the entire second half and also try to convert on the offensive end and not even get a breather, right? So I think that's where the minutes kind of add up. It's like there's multiple ways where it sort of adds up. It's like, yeah, maybe your legs are a little tired on offense. Maybe you miss a couple more shots. Maybe you don't recover as fast on the defensive end. Maybe when you need that finishing kick at the end of the game, it's just not there because you've already expended all your energy. I think 3 of the Raptors starters played 42 minutes. I think there was one at 40, and then Yak came in at like 36. So they rode the starters really, really heavily in this game. And I understand why Nick Nurse didn't. It's tough, right? Because he obviously doesn't trust the bench. So there wasn't really an obvious point where he could be like, oh, I'm going to throw on the bench. But what kind of happened is the Raptors came out in the beginning of the third quarter and they established their lead, right? Because they were already up about 10, 11 at the break. They got it up to like 19. I thought maybe that was the point where you don't want to take your foot off the gas, but maybe that was the point where you could maybe sprinkle in a bench player here or there while you're still riding the high. So what kind of happened is, just as the Raptors fell into this drought, just as the Bulls were kind of punching back, that's when you finally pulled Siakam, pulled OG, and then you threw these guys out there and they did nothing, and the Bulls continued their run. I think I saw the first sub to come into the game was Gary Trent with 3 something minutes left in the third quarter. The Raptors were up 17 at that point. They lost the quarter. Maybe they were 15. They were up like 15 or 17. They lost the rest of the quarter by like 7 points, something like that. And then it was just kind of downhill from there. It was like that was the moment that you gave up the ghost. So it's tough. It's tough to second guess Nick Nurse here, right? Because Trent didn't have it.
Sorry to correct you, but they lost the third quarter by 2 points.
Yeah, I'm talking about the last 3 minutes from the point Gary Trent came in to the end of the third quarter is what I'm talking about. So yeah, I think.
Thank you for clarifying.
Yeah, I think, look, there's no good answer. The good answer is to have a good bench, and the Raptors don't have a good bench. They don't have a bench that they trust. Maybe you could argue that they should have given Boucher a little more run. They should have given someone else a little more run, Precious. But like, this is not the answer. The answer is, I mean, I don't know. If the answer was there, the Raptors would have won this game.
Skip, you know what? Listen, the way I see it as a former coach, and you just touched on it, Nick Nurse not trusting his bench. I think that's pretty much an egotistical thing, right? I think he might just have it on his blinders, right? And not looking at what he has available, because over the course of the season, he has not trusted his bench. So what are they there for? What's the point? Are they just filling spots? because you have a lot of players coming off the bench, like you just said, Boucher, Achua. You also got Gary Trent coming off the bench. And not to mention, I've been harping on this, Malachi, Delano. There are multiple players that can come off the bench and can play the game. But my issue is with Nick Nurse, the way he utilized the team is he's not giving these guys a chance, right? It's like,
well, you're not going to give him a chance in the playoffs if you're not giving.
Well, but if you gave them a chance over the course of the season, they would be ready. And during the playoff game, because it was do or die, basically. Yeah. And at least if you got your backup soldiers ready to go, right? And they're not cold, right? They can still do it, because I saw a lot of hope with the bench during the final season game against Milwaukee, which is basically Toronto's bench against Milwaukee's bench.
I mean, that's a G League game. That doesn't matter.
Toronto just took them over, right? But if you do give these guys like that leniency and maybe give them an opportunity, right? They might not hold it, because like you said, you're not a psychologist, but I've studied psychology. There might be a mental aspect, especially even the performance we saw from Gary Trent last night. Like, oh, I'm designated to the bench. Oh, so I ain't nothing, right? They might have that mentality to be like, oh shit, I ain't gonna get no reps. He's gonna run the top 5 down to the ground, and I'm just gonna be thrown out there.
Right? Well, I think the Trent thing is a little bit different.
I think if Nick Nurse were to stay with the Raptors, I think he might have to be a little bit more open to what the bench can do. Because let's face it, there's a lot of teams in the league that have benches, no household name players, but the bench provides. Toronto, in this city, in this country, all of these guys are household names now, right? Maybe he should utilize it, and I'm very disappointed that he didn't utilize them, right? Because these guys have a lot of potential. Like, we've seen what Delano can do in the offseason. We've seen what Malachi can do in the offseason. We know what Precious has done. He's been on a decline since he came here from Miami. Last year he was pretty good with Scotty. I think he might need to take an open look, like those that what do you say? He needs to take a look and figure it out at the end of the season. Maybe. Yeah. I think that's something that he should look into. What are your thoughts on Nick Nurse coaching this team?
Well, look, I think if he thought the bench guys were good enough, the bench guys would be playing. He doesn't think they're good enough, and he's the coach. So it doesn't matter if they're household names, it doesn't matter this or that or the other thing. Are they good enough to do the job that he needs them to do? His answer is no. Do they, though? Do we really think these guys are NBA players long term? I mean, yes. I think most of these guys will be washed out of the league in 2 or 3 years. Realistically, a lot of these guys probably will not be in the league very much longer. That doesn't necessarily mean the team is completely giving up on them. I'm not including Precious in that, but like a guy like Malachi, a guy like Delano, who knows if these guys are going to be in the league?
Hold on, let me argue with you on that. Let me argue with you on that. Let me argue with you on that one. Last year, who was my favorite player on that team? Utah. Yeah. Right? And look what they didn't utilize him, and I was pissed for that. Yeah. Now look what he's doing on Brooklyn. Okay?
Sure.
They have potential, right? Masai knows what he's doing when he goes to get these guys. So I'm going to argue with you.
Every player in the NBA has some skills. It's just about, maybe there is a spot for them somewhere. Maybe it's in Europe. Maybe it's on another team. The only guy I'll argue with, like Trent, I absolutely think Trent is in the rotation under normal circumstances. I think what happened there, it does suck that he only got 60 minutes in an elimination game. But I think what kind of happened there is much more of he was injured near the end of the regular season. He came back and he just was not in rhythm, and he did not get his shot going. He finally got a few shots off against Milwaukee in that final game. But if you look at those shots, I mean, like I said, that was a G League game. A lot of those were just open looks. Like, no one was guarding him. So once he gets into a playoff atmosphere, he just was not in rhythm enough to be making the shots. And Nick Nurse sees that and he pulls the plug in pretty quick, which, I mean, it's unfortunate. it's kind of what happened last year in playoffs with Gary too, right? Where he was injured going into that Philly series. So it's just bad timing for Trent. I think absolutely if Trent was playing well, he would have been in that starting five. He would have mixed in a lot more minutes, and they might not have even touched him. It might have been a 6-man rotation for all we know. But yeah, the other guys on the bench, I think it's pretty clear that there was no trust there, and that Nick Nurse was going to ride or die with his guys, and he rode with them, and it blew up in his face.
Okay, so before we get out of here, we're short on time, Skipper. Did Nick, just answer me yes or no, did Nick Nurse do a good job with the Raptors this season? Could he have done more?
I'm not super thrilled overall. I don't think he did any one thing really badly. You can harp on the minutes early in the season, maybe. But I think he dealt with the cards that he played the cards that he was dealt. Now, as for whether that means he should be back next season, I'm not totally convinced that he should. I'm not totally convinced that he's the right coach for this team going forward. I do think after this game, we might be looking at a shakeup. I think this was a pretty disappointing, dispiriting game for the whole organization as in general. Like the fact that they couldn't pull this game out, it's a pretty big red flag for their upside going forward. But yeah, I'm not going to put it all on Nick Nurse's doorstep, but I think if there was a change to be made, that might be one way that you're sort of looking at it taking place.
Okay, so we're both on the same page here that Nick Nurse is not really capable of being.
No, I wouldn't say not capable. Not the right coach going forward is different than
not the right fit. Sorry, my bad for words, but maybe not the right fit for what this team has available, right? Like you said, the cards that you dealt. Sometimes you could be dealt a pair of threes and still win that poker game. You know what I mean? It just depends on how you handle it. Skip, do you have anything left to say now that the season's over?
Well, I do want to say this was a depressing game, and this was a depressing kind of just even going into this game. A lot of people were really depressed and not really excited for this game around Raptors land. And that's kind of a red flag for me. That indicates that there's fatigue in the fan base. There's probably fatigue in the organization. I think there's something is going to have to change this offseason, because running it back, it's a good strategy overall. But I think the time has come for some changes. Whatever they look like, whatever they are, I'm not really sure. But yeah, something's got to give. And I don't. It's going to be a tough offseason for the front office.
Okay, let's see how it plays out. You guys out there, we're going to be discussing the Raptors' future coming up. So remember, click on that bell. If you enjoyed this, we will be discussing this and going very, very in depth into it with, who knows, we might have special guests. 1 or 2, maybe 3. I don't know. Who knows? So Skip, I would just say sorry to I don't know. I think Drake was crying in his shower last night.
He wasn't there, was he? I didn't see him.
Yeah, of course not, because he's not there to support them. He's going to be in LA supporting LeBron. Yeah, good. Anyway, real ass adore. I'm not going to get into that. That's a whole nother 20 minutes. Skip, this has been a good conversation. I'll leave off with that. I think we are going, like you ladies and gentlemen out there, we are going to be looking at everything in the offseason. We're also going to be focusing on the playoffs as well. We are also going to be talking about potential players getting certain awards. We will be out there for you guys no matter what during this offseason. So if you gave up on the Raptors this season after their game, don't give up on us. We'll be here for you, okay? We will be taking care of it. So Skip, I guess we got to go. So on behalf of myself, Skip, and
again.
Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, good night, and
peace.